Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Honorable Chairman of the Zain Hasan Islamic Boarding School Foundation, Kiai Haji Muhammad Hasan, Talakit Alumni SMM, Honorable Associate Professor Dr. Abdul Aziz BAMAG, as the Registrar of Zain Hasan Islamic University and as the examiners, Honorable Dr. Zainuddin as the Head of the English Study Program and as the examiner, Honorable Mr. Ferdinand Yanto as the supervisors and as the examiners, Honorable Ms. Nina Haryati MH as the supervisors and all the participants. Before, let me introduce myself. My name is Nurat Maufuha from the English Education Department. Today I would like to present my research entitled Students' Perception of Enjoyable Listening Activities in a Low Exposure EFL Classroom and FS Evaluation. In this presentation, I will explain the background of the study, the research problem, the objective, the research method, the research finding, and the conclusion. Move to the next slide is the research background of the study. Listening is one of the most essential language skills, because it became for the foundation for understanding spoken English. However, students in FL classroom, especially those with limited exposure to English outside school, listening is often considered the most difficult skills. Based on my observation, many students experience difficulties because they have limited vocabulary, unfamiliar English pronunciation, and rarely heard English in their daily lives. Although previous studies have focused on listening strategies and learning outcomes, but a few studies have focused on student perception of enjoyable listening activities, particularly in a low exposure FL classroom. Move to the next slide, which discusses the research problem and the objective. The study addressed two research questions. First, what are student perceptions of enjoyable listening activities in a low exposure? And second, what types of the listening activities do students find the most enjoyable? Based on this question, the objective of this study are first, to explore student perception of enjoyable listening activities, and second, to identify the listening activities that students enjoyable the most in a low exposure EFL classroom. Move to the next slide. This slide is about the research method. This study applied a qualitative research design using a case study approach. The research was conducted at MTS Indonesia, involved 25 students who were selected positively because they had limited exposure outside the classroom. And data collected were through three techniques: classroom observation, and semi-structured interviews, and documentation. And the collected data were analyzed using three steps. First, data reduction, and second, data display, and the last is conclusion drawing. To ensure the trustworthiness of the findings, triangulation was applied by comparing data from different sources and methods. Move to the next slide, please. In this slide, it's talk about research findings. The first finding showed that students initially had negative perception toward listening activities. They felt listening as difficult because they had limited vocabulary, and the speaker talked too fast and rarely used English in outside the classroom. The second finding is revealed that students prefer enjoyable and interactive listening activities. The activities they liked the most were listening to songs, watching videos with subtitles, and the last is participating in a group discussion. Next to the move to the next slide. This slide is about discussion. The finding indicate that student perception change over time. At first, they feel listening as difficult and boring because they had limited English exposure, and repetitive classroom activities. Another important finding is the teacher's role. Providing explanation before listening activities reduce student confusion and prepare them to understand the listening materials more effectively. Finally, next, move to the next slide. This slide is the conclusion. Based on this finding, I conclude that students in a low exposure EFL classroom initially had negative perception of listening because of limited vocabulary, and then rarely heard listening English in outside the classroom. And however, enjoyable listening activities such as songs, videos with subtitles, and participating in group discussion create more engaging in learning environment. Therefore, the effectiveness of listening instruction depends not only the materials used, but how the teachers design and implement and interactive in listening activities learning. Okay, that's enough from me. I welcome any questions from the honorable and all participants.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, for questions. I open the questions. Yes,
What data analysis technique you use in your research?
Okay, thank you for your question. I analyze the data with three techniques: classroom observation, and semi-structured interviews, and documentation.
Okay, other questions? Yes, Iqbal.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Iqbal Bibulana. My question is for Mustafa is why did you focus on student perception?
Thank you for your question. I focus on student perception because previous study has focused on listening strategies and learning outcomes, while my study is focused on student perception of enjoyable listening activities.
Thank you. Okay, Professor Ferry, enough only two questions.
Nuriyatul Maftuha. From me, which listening activity did the student enjoy the most? Which listening activity did the students enjoy the most?
Okay, Maria.
Okay, the student mostly enjoy with listening to songs because it was fun and easier to understand.
Okay, enough for me. Now, Professor Ferry.
Okay, thank you for your attention. The last I say, wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.